Hey guys, Robert here with the Piston Slap channel, and today we are going to be putting a set of Core Moto stainless steel brake lines on the bike. So it's going to be pretty much an easy install from what I can see. They're just a removal of a couple components. You're probably like, well, the whole front wheel's gone. I just got done rebuilding the front suspension, so I just slid the axle in and kind of just bolted up the calipers to mock it up. It would be easier without the fender and everything in there, plus you wouldn't worry about getting brake fluid on those painted surfaces. But the first thing you're going to want to do is get the brake fluid out of the system. And what I've gotten was just a little piece of vacuum hose that'll go on the end of the nipple. 10mm wrench. And I'm just using the line to just kind of direct the fluid out and down into the drain pan, guys. So the bolt for the brake line is a 12mm. And Core Moto supplies you with new banjo bolts and washers. So you don't have to reuse them, and it's not brake lines. You don't ever reuse the little washers. These little, I don't know if you guys can see that. Those are like a one-time use only. Once you use them, they're done. Throw them away. If you're in a pinch, you know, and it's what you got to get home, then you know obviously you got to do what you got to do. But where I'm at home, I'm not going to worry about that. The design of the Core Moto brake lines is a little different than the factory lines, and they have a reason on their webpage. I think it was something that it applies pressure more evenly to each caliper. What I'm doing now is disconnecting the vehicle speed sensor for the front wheel from the brake line. So I'm on the left side of the bike, and you can see where both lines come down from the master. And I'm going to just put a rag under here to keep all this from running all over the bike. And if you're looking for a brake flush video, I'll throw that video up there for you guys as well. There's the stock brake line, guys. The crossover line, and then that's the main one down from the harness, or from the harness, I'm sorry, from the master. It's been a long day. There's a metal clip up here at the bottom of the triple tree. Just work that out like that. And I believe that's it. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a picture of what I'm working on up here, because I'm trying to show you guys exactly where I'm at and what I'm talking about. It'll be much harder on that camera. You can only do so much with a GoPro. So the brake line that I'm talking about is here underneath the master. So it is a 12mm. There could be a 12mm wrench or socket and ratchet, your choice. Like I said, I'm going to say this throughout the whole dang video. The brake fluid is it will damage the painted components on your bike. If you get brake fluid on your painted surfaces, wipe it off immediately and then proceed to wash it off with soap and water, unless you just don't care about your bike. In that case, it's your bike. You can do whatever you want with it. This is the next one. You see that just started pouring out, and the reason being is just because I let a whole bunch of air up here into the system. Just bring the brake line down. Pay attention to where it's routed. These are the factory rubber lines. So there's a front and a rear when they send them to you. And they're pretty well labeled where they go and how they go. Alright, so put that right there for you. You see both brake lines come up. See the copper washer on the end, the copper washer in between the seal, and then the other copper washer on the end. So you'll have 3 copper washers on this long banjo bolt. In this particular kit, that's what you get is 1 long banjo bolt and four standard sized ones. Another thing you want to do before getting this far, well, what they want you to do is to test fit. Basically take the banjo bolt and screw it into your caliper by hand to make sure that the threads are the same as an exact match. Let's get this up in there and attached. And then you drop everything like I do. All but. And you want to start all these by hand, guys. Don't get in a hurry, and if it's not going, just take your time. If it still won't work for you, come back to it. You know, take a break, go get a cheeseburger or whatever it is you guys are into. Because the last thing you want to do is cross thread a brake line bolt. Then you're going to be buying some components here that are going to be quite spendy. I'm going to just suggest snugging them down finger tight. Don't tighten them yet, because in case you need to make an adjustment, if you crunch it down, what'll happen is you'll waste the copper washers that they provide, and you'll have to go buy yourself another set. Core Moto has labeled them with these white tags. I don't know if you guys will see them. One says right caliper and the other says left. This is where if you had that fender on, it would make it a little bit easier. Okay, from this point with the brake lines on, once you got them all fitted exactly the way you wanted them, you would tighten the bolts down to the specification that they supply, which is either manufacturer's specs, which I'll throw up here in the video. On the paper that they sent, they say that the bolt should be tightened to a minimum of 14 foot-pounds, a max of 24 foot-pounds. For you guys across the pond or in South America, I believe they use metric. You got Newton meters of a minimum of 20 Newton meters and a max of 33 Newton meters. And if you're wondering why it's low, the bolt's actually hollow in the center so that the brake fluid could pass down through and into the caliper. So it's not holding the brake caliper to the bike, it's just holding the line and making a sealing surface there. So keep that in mind. A torque wrench is a must for this, I would say. Alright, here we are on the back. And if you're wondering why the back looks a little goofy, there's no shock in there because I forgot to order the shock adapter piece. So obviously first step is pop the speed sensor wiring off. And I believe this little doodad's going to have a different mounting. careful with it. Don't tear it up. If you break that wire, you guys are gonna hate life. This one, we can dump all the fluid out real easy, but what I was talking about is you're gonna wanna remove this rear hugger. It's just a piece of plastic that's held on with three Allens that I believe are going to be 5mm. You guys can see that metal bracket here that actually keeps that brake line from coming over. So same as the front, 12mm banjo bolts, 10mm on the bleeder. This will work a little bit better, guys, because obviously the rotor's attached on the bike, so I can purge the fluid out of the brake system. I would push on the brake like I'm holding it and then open the bleeder, let the fluid out, and then close it. The only difference is I'm going to let it run the master dry because I don't want any fluid in the system. When you start getting to the end of the thing, your pedal's going to get really soft. You're gonna have to pump it a couple times. What that's doing is it's gonna kind of like pressurize your brake system and with air, which doesn't work, and it's gonna push out any remainder fluid. And then once you start getting that, where it's just kind of nothing but air out, that's pretty much it. So, shouldn't be much brake fluid left in the system. Just go ahead and remove the brake line, which is this one bolt over here. I don't know if the camera's at the right angle. Up on the master, and the one back here on the caliper. And I can't remember exactly what the manufacturer says for brake lines. It's how long they want them on the bike or replaced. Some people, and I know there's gonna be comments down the road, you know, it might be 3 or 4 years, but someone's gonna come along and say, well, I've got the same brake lines on my bike and it's 40 years old and I've never had a problem. And I'm sure you haven't. I'm just putting this video out there for those of us that like to follow the manufacturer's specs and change things out, or you know, upgrade from a rubber line to a stainless steel line. And it's even tagged rear caliper. Now I'm experiencing a little bit of a fit issue. Maybe it's just me. But if you did experience a fit issue, it is okay to just tweak that fitting a little bit to your liking. And just be gentle with it, guys. Like I said, when it comes to this kind of stuff, patience is a virtue because it could go south on you. And then if you need when you go to use your brakes, obviously you're going to want them to work. So that's another key component. Just a little finesse. Perfect. Alright, the new Core Moto brake lines are not going to be the same bolt head as the factory. They are going to be bigger. So the new banjo bolts will be at a 14, so you'll already know that because of video editing. I can put all the tools you're going to need at the beginning of the video before you even get started. I'm going to torque those to the recommended. It's a little bit tight to me, but Alright, once you get your brake line installed, and I'm not going to lie, that front one, to torque it properly, you would most likely need to remove the master from the bike by either loosening this and tilting it back to torque that down. I just went about it in my personal way and just tightened it down with a hand wrench or an end wrench, just by feel. It's not the proper way to do it, and that's a risk that I would be willing to take. Okay. What I'm doing now is installing the rear hugger to just kind of get an idea where all these cables are going to lay out. And there's red Loctite on them. I'm going to replace it with blue because I don't have any red on me right now. Okay, when you're getting close to finishing up your hugger, don't forget to put this bracket back in here, this wrap around that brake line, and that will also prevent your brake line from becoming one with the tire and causing problems down the road. You don't want anything touching your tire, you don't want to lose your rear brake, and you definitely don't want brake fluid getting on your tire when you're getting ready to go around the corner, because that just makes for a mess. So I just positioned one of the little rubber grommets right there. Remove the tags and just fit everybody on there. Like so, and that's it. It's almost it. Well, next you got to bleed the brakes. So to bleed the brakes, be just like bleeding the brakes in my other video, except for you have no fluid in it, so it's just going to take longer. Your choice of brake fluid. I prefer the Maxima Racing Oils High Temperature .4. You want to make sure, absolutely, and this goes for the front and the rear brake, it doesn't matter. You want to be 100% sure that that brake system is operational before you even get on your bike. And what I mean that is, like, you take it out and you roll it across your driveway or wherever, your shop, your parking lot, whatever you may have, and you grab that brake and make sure that that wheel stops 100%. If it doesn't stop, repeat the bleeding procedure. You've got air in your system or something's going on. Under no idea, don't think just going and riding and using the brake a few times is going to purge out the air, because it's not going to, for one. And the second thing is you're putting your life at risk. And then I want you guys to come back and watch other videos of weird stuff I'm going to take apart. Alright guys, just a real quickie. So I was having a hard time bleeding the brake reservoir and the brake line with the new brake lines. Just trying to pump it up and stuff. There's just so much air in the system from draining this and then the brake line here and then this new brake line as well. The new Core line is actually higher than the actual reservoir, so you get an air pocket stuck up in there. What I ended up doing was just cracking the bleeder and pouring fluid in, and then that just kind of pushed all the air out. But what was really strange was the brakes felt really good, but by the time I got about 4 or 5 miles away from the house, the brake pedal went from being normal to being really soft. What ended up happening was that I must have had an air bubble trapped up in this upper line that supplies brake fluid to the master. So what I ended up doing to get that air bubble out and any additional air bubbles in the brake line was hooking up a little Mighty Vac, which I believe it's in my brake flush video, to here, and then just pouring brake fluid in here as I was sucking it out the other end, basically. So I just wanted to throw that little tip in there, and that's about that, guys. So hope that helps. Ride safe.